Welcome to the chapter 12 of the discussion today, which is on stress. And here we are going to study the factors what leads to stress, the definition of stress, why we need to study stress, and what are the organizational stressors and how it can be prevented, along with the counseling techniques and different types of counseling. So, the objective of this chapter is to develop an understanding of stress, the stress models, work stressors, stress outcomes, stress moderators, stress prevention and management, employee counseling, and types of counseling. Now, why we need to study stress in an organization? Because stress is one of the major cost for the organization. Cost not only in terms of the financial losses, but cost in terms of loss in productivity, absenteeism, tardiness, and the grievances formed within the organization, cost in terms of the affecting health of the employees within the organization, cost in terms of disturbance in the quality of their work life, and also it may spread to the quality of it may have an effect on the quality of life of the employees per se who are stressful. So it is an important area which need to be studied by the OB practitioners to know what exactly is stress, what are the causes of stress, and what are the organizational factors that may help some formation of stress, and how it can be prevented and also how it can be managed. So we will start over here with a definition of stress. So, if you see, like, the stress consists of the mental and physical response of our bodies to the changes and challenges in our lives. And stressor is any physical, social, or psychological event or condition that causes the body to adjust to a specific situation. And homeostasis is a level of functioning in which the body systems operate smoothly and maintain equilibrium. So, if we go by these definitions very slowly, what we find over here, like when we talk like something has to be a stress, it is not only a physical response, but there is a mental counterpart to it. So, every situation is not stressful to everyone. So, it depends on how we interpret a particular situation, and then it becomes stressful. So, there is a mental counterpart and a physical counterpart to, like, when you are talking of stress, and it's a person's response to, like, how we face, how we see the changes and challenges in our lives. When you are talking of stressors, stressors are anything which could be like physical, social, or psychological event and or condition which gives us the stimulus, like it's not, the homeostasis is getting disturbed and we need to adjust to those specific situations. So, stress definitions can be classified as stimulus definition and also a response definition. So, when we are talking of stimulus definition, we treat stress as a stimulus itself. It's some of the characteristics, events present in the or situation in the environment that in some way results in a disruptive consequence. And so we borrow this definition from engineering aspect, and the outcome of stress is taken to be a strain. So, the stimulus aspect considers stress as the stimulus that we receive from the environment, which leads to certain disruptive condition, and the outcome we tell it to be strain. When you are talking of a response definition, it treats stress as a response to a stimulus, which is called a stressor, which is a potentially harmful or threatening external event or situation. So, it is a stress, it results from an unique interaction between the environmental situation and a person's predisposition to perceive things in certain way. So, you will find like when we talk of stress as a response, it is more of a function of the personality pattern of the individual and perceptual factors like which guides the perception of the individual, and that is why the certain situations become potentially stressful for the individuals, and the way it has been interpreted, it leads to actual stress patterns. Coming to a comprehensive definition about stress, we take it to be an adaptive response moderated by individual differences that is a consequence of any action, situation or event that places special demands on person. It includes the person's response and the stimulus conditions. Stress results from dealing with something that places special or unusual demands on the individual. So, when we are talking of special demands and unusual demands, and some like we perceiving it to be stressful, also depends on like how equipped are we to answer to these special demands, what resources do we have, both mental, physical and maybe organizational resources do we have to answer to these special demands or challenges, and do we think like all the demands that are put on us is like we can meet those demands, like and how we are going to cope with this. So, locus of control, coping strategies of individuals, all these will act together to determine what is actually stressful for the particular individual, and this will differ from individual to individual. So, a particular situation may appear to be stressful for person A, but the same situation may not be stressful for person B. Now, we will try to discuss about some of the potential stressors, like it not all stressors will place the same demands on all people. So, to result in stress, so the particular event or situation or action, whatever it is, should be perceived as threatful, perceived as harmful, dangerous by the individual. If the consequence as perceived by the individual for a particular situation is not threatful, it is not perceived to be threatful or harmful for the individual. So, it is not going to result in stress. So, the factors that determine whether what an individual experiences is likely to result in stress or not is like the importance of the stimuli for the individual, like how significant the event is to the individual. Uncertainty, so lack of clarity about what will happen after this. The outcome of that stimulus is not known to us. The duration, so for how much time that the demand is placed on us. The longer the demands are placed upon us, the more stressful the situations are. So, if we go for this discussion, like what results in stress or stressors, then it has a time factor. The more time the demand has been on us and we are not able to answer to those challenges, the longer the demand and the more intense the demand is on us, and the less we are equipped to face the situations, the more important the demand is on us, because it may be it's more like in the organization, it could be related like for your role performance. If it is, there is a role demand on us and it's related to your performance, like you have to do certain, you have to reach certain target because it's related to your performance, and you again don't know like how to do, what are the resources to do it and to perform it, and if you do not do it properly, if it is not stated to you clearly what will happen to you, all these situations may lead to stress in the organization. We will next discuss about the general adaptation syndrome, which has got 3 phases. This is how actually the occurrence of stress. So, to become stressful, so it is not generally formed in one step. It has 3 steps to it. First is the alarm phase, like when something is very unusual, which is beyond your ability to deal with, what you do, your body, your mind sends an alarm to you, like this is not okay, this is not something that you can are very comfortable, that you are very comfortable with. So, that is the alarm state. Your body and your mind send signals to you. Next is the resistance phase, where you try to resist those unusual situations. Either you try to ignore those things, or you try to like reduce the intensity of those demands on you, or you physically try to prevent those stimulus from reaching you. Whatever it is, you try to resist the happening of those things. And next comes the exhaustion phase, like when it takes over you, like in spite of the resistance that you show and give, you are not able to prevent it and it comes upon you. Then it comes to the exhaustion phase. In exhaustion phase, there is a complete depletion of energy, and it may result in short term stress and long term stress, depends on the intensity of the stimulus, importance of the stimulus and its consequences for you, and for how much time the stimulus has been coming, it is coming to you, and the event, whether what long, like how much, what is the consequence it's going to have in your daily life or in your work life. Here specifically we are dealing with organizational stress, and organizational stress are work stressors that can come from the physical environment, the individual, the group or the organization. So, sources are different. It can work, it can you can try to collect this in like cues from the physical environment which may appear stressful. Each the factors may be present within the individual, and so because certain things are not matching with the organizational characteristics, your personal values, your emotions, your attitudes, then it may lead to a stress for you. It may come from the group situation, where the group norms, the cohesiveness patterns, the group goals set for particular members, the specifically the norms that may appear to be stressful for you, or the organization per se, based on its principles, the culture it follows, its socialization process, the leadership quality, the target set for the particular individual, performance evaluation techniques, the scheduling of the work pattern, anything can be, or the recognition given, the freedom allowed to employees. Different things could be stressful to employees based on what they perceive to be stressful, based again on their individual backgrounds and personality pattern, ability to control the outcome, and self efficacy, self esteem, various factors related to the individual things, which may help or which may rather influence the way person perceives certain things in the organization and what appears to be stressful to them or not. So, the potential stress consequences may be again at the individual level or at the organizational level. Work stressors at the individual level are role conflict, work overload, and change. In role conflict, what happens, like you are given a role, particular role, which in the organization, which is in conflict with another role that you may have outside the organization, or you are working in a matrix sort of organizational structure where you have but you have to report to two bosses, and they are they have set two targets for you, and you don't know which target to answer to first. So there could be conflicts of and this block could be when the one role that you play within the organization is trying to block the other role that you are playing, maybe within or outside the organization, then this role conflict happens. Work overload is where you find too much pressure for the work, too much work to be done at a particular point of time, and deadlines are very stringent deadlines. You have to meet those deadlines sort of, and there is a time pressure for working within a short span of time. You have to take care of so many work, and if you are not prone to multitasking, or if you are multi-skilled, then what happens, it is beyond, you feel like you are not equipped enough to deal with the work demands that are made on you, and you have a sense of work overload, like you feel like it's the pressure of the quantity of work that's there on you. Change, when you're talking of change is anything like the what you are about to do in a newer perspective, either in a near perspective from the earlier ways of doing things. Now, the acceptance of change, again, how you accept change depends again on your coping strategy and how much equipped you are, how much competent you are to adjust in the new situations, in the change, like after change, whatever happens, whatever new situation is there, whatever new organizational structure is there, whatever new role gets defined for you, how much competent you are to fit into those roles and structure and perform well. These questions in our mind, like whether I'll be able to survive in that new situation, makes people accept or reject change, or whether I'll be at all be there with the organization, or organization is going to drop me somewhere in the process of change, and are some of the questions in the people's mind which make them to accept or reject change. Another there is called the Holocaust effect, where like if some other people are dropped somewhere now in this process of change, the people for those who are remaining back, then sometimes questions arise in their mind. Today I was not the target, but what if tomorrow I become the target of this change, and what if I receive the signal from the organization, you are no more required part of our organization. So all these question marks to which there is the employee doesn't have a proper answer at hand makes them either to accept change or to reject it. If the answers are clear to them, if there is organization's guidance, if there is a sharing of information regarding how the change is done, and if they get an assurance of like the organizations is going to take effort for their development and like nurturing their competencies so that they fit in the new situation, then people, and if they are involved in the change decisions, then people try to accept change, get comfortable with the change. Otherwise, numerous questions in mind about the change process itself is stressful for the particular employee. Group stressors. In group relationship among the members of a work group are central to individual well-being. So sometimes participation can be stressful for particular employees because they are asked to like spend more time on the group processes, be a part of decision making process, and like take certain important decisions also for the group. So now if I have other demanding roles in my life to be played, if I cannot devote that much of time to a particular group, or rather I'm not interested also to devote that particular time. If I want to maintain a passive membership rather than a very active membership in the group process, then what happens, like your pressure from the group to participate in a decision making process as a part of like whether your membership will be considered or not considered can be a stress for the particular individual. Also, the norms set for the group for performance or rules and regulations set for interactions, cohesiveness, etc. If I am not able to adjust with these things, these may also appear to be stressful for the individual. Intra and intergroup relations. So, poor relations include low trust, low supportiveness, and low interest in listening to and trying to deal with problems that confront an employee. Research shows that mistrust of the people one works with in a group is positively related to high role ambiguity, which leads to inadequate communication and low job satisfaction. So, what happens in organization if there is an atmosphere of mistrust amongst employees, where there is less of sharing of how to perform things, and like you don't share how to perform in a much better way, and there is like withholding of information because main factor is we do not trust each other, or we feel like you can be a challenge for the incentives that I get from you can pose a threat to me, you can pose a challenge to me for the incentives that we get from the organization. Then what happens in this atmosphere of mistrust, which may generate from different reasons, this atmosphere becomes stressful for the individual to perform, because role ambiguity will will be there, because we do not know like how to perform things and what are the exact expectations from that role, and what we have to do as a part of thing, and what is generally the organization's sanctioned way of doing certain things. These we get to know from people already present in the organization, or through the earlier group members through the process of socialization. Now, if there is an atmosphere of mistrust, we do not get to know these informations, and it may lead to role ambiguity and low job satisfaction. So, several aspects of group and group activity can act as stressors. First in the list is, of course, like the norms of the group and how they are enforced. What are the levels of hierarchy in the group? What is the power distance in the group, and what information percolates down to the lower rank members or not? How much clarity of information is maintained, and how much transparency is there? Group leadership, the leadership qualities of the group leader, the philosophy in which the leader believes in, whether it is autocratic in nature or benevolent in nature, or you are going for a participative leadership. All this will affect the whether I feel stressed in the organization or not, whether I am able to share my minds with others or not. So, as a matter of stress release process, so these factors are definitely going to influence my experience of stress in the organization. So, also intergroup differences in goals, and what goals I think it is important for my group, and the perceptions and demands for specialists, whether I am a generalist or whether I have some special skills which are respected by the group members. All these factors will become a source of stress for the particular individual in the organization. When we are talking of organizational factors, organizational politics can be a source of stress for many employees, because in a organizational politics, there are different ways of impression management techniques taken care of, and there are different ways of passively showing aggression to one individual, showing aggression to the other individual, and different techniques are adopted to, like somewhere where you try to, like the image of the person in the organization, it gets disturbed. Which you may feel like will have an effect on the like promotional aspects or getting benefits, whatever, in the organization. So, organizational politics per se can be what exactly we call to be politicking is an important source of stress for many employees, and we get to hear there is so much of politics in the organization, where each individual is trying to put a block to the other individual's career progress, or getting recognition from the organization, and it can be stress for a particular employee. Organizational culture so can be a stressor to the individual if my personal values are not matching with the personality pattern of the organization, which is expressed through the organizational culture. And then lack of performance feedback, inadequate career development opportunities, and downsizing can also lead to stress on the part of the individuals. So, if I do not get feedback of how I am performing and what I need to do to improve how I am doing things, then that role clarity will never come and it will always be ambiguous in nature. And if there is inadequate career development opportunities also, then we do not know for what will be doing in this organization, because everybody has a need for growth, and if this growth need is not satisfied and there is inadequate career development opportunities, so people will feel it take it to be a very stressful event in the organization. And of course, downsizing can also lead to stress, because you don't, by observing the situation, you are not very sure why some people are said no in the organization, what are exactly their drawbacks, and you do not know when it is your turn. So all these factors may lead to stress on the part of the individual. So we will discuss some of the organizational role stress variables. In organizational role stress, the various things listed are, of course, inter-role distance, like whether there is too much of distance between the two roles that you have to perform, or whether the roles are very much overlapping, and in one word, there is no role clarity, as the roles are not clearly defined and you do not know what to do exactly as a part of which role. So, inter-role distance could be a stressful factor. Role stagnation, we were just discussing about the career progression in the organization, and if you are not able to perceive the role that you are into the organization, how much it is in future, has a future prospect in the organization, what is the path that is there defined for you in the organization, and how much you can move forward with this role is, or whether this role itself has no growth opportunities per se, then that will lead to a stress which is called role stagnation. Role expectations conflict, when different people try to expect different things from the same role, that is what we discussed under the matrix organization. If you have to report to 2-3 people and they have set different targets for you and they expect different things from you, so you really do not know which one to answer first, and that will lead to role expectation conflict. Personal inadequacy, where you feel like you are not equipped enough to answer to the demands of a particular role, or you do not have control over the resources that will help you to answer to the particular role, will lead to a stress which is called personal inadequacy. Self role conflict is again a conflict between the role that you are playing and your personal value system, and then what happens, maybe it will lead to an not a effective commitment in the organization, but it will lead either to a normative or continuous commitment in the organization. Though your values are not matching those you are not though you are not able to accept the role wholeheartedly, you will perform it because it means an earning for you, but you are not able to identify with the role you are playing, or you do not enjoy the role that you are playing because of this self role conflict. Or it may be appearing stressful to you because certain things you believe in, and certain things that you have to do as a part of your job, which is very opposite to that what you believe in, then it will lead to self role conflict. Role erosion, again, when you find the role is getting eroded, and maybe it will become extinct in the organization because it is getting replaced by so many other things. Role overload is when you have a single role and it gets overloaded with the demands from different aspects. So, it leads to role overload, too many things to be performed under one heading, then it leads to role overload. Role isolation is again when your role is isolated from the other roles in the organization, or it is not matching with your own expectations, then it leads to role isolation. Role ambiguity, again, when it is not, the role is not very clearly stated, and you do not know what exactly you have to do to perform well in the particular role. Resource inadequacy is when you don't have the proper resources to match the demands of your role. So, and you do not know, like when there is lack of resources or lack of adequate resources, how to reach the target that has been set for you. It's a challenge that you face, and it may lead to stress in the organization. When we are talking of outcomes of stress, so it can have different outcomes, and of course, first outcome is that of the individual outcomes in the organization, and it leads to psychological consequences such as anxiety, frustration, apathy, lowered self-esteem, aggression and depression. So, you will find like it's a cost of depression is it is a huge cost in the medical bill, and it leads to loss of productivity and absenteeism. So, depression is something which needs to be taken care of very specifically among all the psychological consequences, and depression is the individual outcomes such as anxiety, frustration, apathy, lowered self-esteem, aggression and depression. And depression is actually an outcome of like when you feel like anxious, frustrated, and you feel your self-esteem is lowered, and you feel like you're not able to control the situations are out of your hand, then generally you fall a prey of depression, which can be again short term, or it may lead to long term depression, which affects very seriously the mental health of people. So, we have to be very careful of the psychological consequences of stress. Cognitive effects, like it is the inability to make sound decisions, poor concentration and short attention span, all these will have an effect on the performance and the efficiency of the individual in the organization. Behavioral effects such as alcoholism, drug abuse, accident proneness, excessive eating and smoking is going to affect the physical health, mental health and social health, of course, of the individuals. Physiological effects like sweating, pupil dilation, increased heart rate and blood pressure are most dysfunctional because they lead to physical illness of the employees in the organization, which may again lead to accidents and costs related to it. So, all these are actually interrelated to each other, and we have, therefore, we just cannot separate one reason from the other, but for the sake of discussion maybe we are trying to study the effects separately, but when it shows it effects all come together and have an effect on the individual, and it will like the it affects the health of the individual as such, which is the physical, mental, social, and even the, if you talk of the spiritual health, the whole status, holistically the person gets disturbed when under stress, and the effects could be from different fronts. So, we have to like while we are counseling people, we have to have a look into the different effects of stress, and we need to see like where some preventive measures can be taken. Coronary heart disease is you can just see like it accounts for like the job and life stress, it accounts for 75% of the incidence of coronary heart disease, and it accounts for about like most of the death in a country. So, so it's a really very alarming situation for the individual, and we need to be careful about it. Burnout is a psychological process that is brought about by unrelieved work stress. The word unrelieved is very important from organizational stress management perspective, because sometimes we have to give avenues for people for expressing their anger, their grievance, their views in the organization, so that it doesn't get piled up within the individual and leads to a feeling of like exhaustion, hollow feeling sort of, because we are exhausted and we have no more strength in us to deal with the stressful situation. So, psychological burnout is a psychological process which is brought about by unrelieved work stress that results in emotional exhaustion, depersonalization, and feelings of decreased accomplishment. So, it is likely amongst individuals whose jobs require much contact with other people. So, again it is a high degree of involvement in identification with and commitments to one job or profession is a prerequisite to burnout. So, and people with lower commitments is less likely to burn out. So, another very related discussion with this is that we are now speaking much about employee engagement. So, and what we are trying to get is a person who is totally dedicated to the organization, identifies totally with the organization, and wants to perform extra for the organization. This is nice maybe from the employees nice from the organization's perspective in terms of the performance and the quality of performance that you get from that particular employee, but what in terms of the employees well-being, like, and the mental health, which is like a hollow feeling that is created from this. If somebody is too much identified with the organization, gets his definition of own self from the identification with the organization and commitments to one's job and profession, then what happens once that particular role is not there, then that person may be falling a prey to burnout, and so we have to make a balance between like how much engagement is, like what is the degree of engagement that should be encouraged in the organization, which is like which is maybe not harmful for the employee from the employee's well-being point of view. So, ways in which organization contributes to burnout is high level of work overload, dead-end jobs, excessive red tape and paperwork, poor communication and feedback, especially about job performance, role conflict and ambiguity, difficult interpersonal relations, reward systems that are not contingent with on the performance of the individual. So, if again like we if we are demanding, if we are trying to make our people engaged in the organization, and like we should be creating a conducive atmosphere for them in terms of the like whatever points is discussed from 1 to 8. So that it should not like lead to the other side of the coin, which is burnout. So this is an organization's responsibility to check these factors, like these factors are not there, or improve on these factors, so that it should not lead to a burnout of the employees. Organizational consequences of stress are hospital and medical costs, lost work time, turnover, sabotage and other variables like some of the misbehaviors, aggressions, theft, sabotage, because somewhere we need an avenue to express the stress and job dissatisfaction, etc., etc. So, and it means immense cost for the individual, for the organization, which we tell to be stress costs. Now, we will discuss some of the stress moderators and like what moderates the level of stress that is experienced by a particular individual in an organization. And of course, the primary moderator is the personality facets. So, personality is a relatively stable set of characteristics, temperaments and tendencies that shape the similarities, differences in individuals' behavior patterns. So, how we are prone to see certain things, how we are prone to interpret certain things will define whether we see certain aspects in our life as stressful or not. And these certain factors, personality factors, are of course like tolerance for ambiguity, the extent to which an individual is comfortable with the unstructured or ambiguous situation, locus of control, which the beliefs individuals have regarding where control over their life resides, internals, people who perceive themselves to be in control of events that shape their lives, and externals, people who feel control is external to them. So, sometimes internals are more likely to experience stress because they are unable to exercise the control they believe that they should be having over the consequences and or the way of doing things. Externals will be more stressful in situations in which they have the capability to exercise some control over what is happening. So, if you are having some control, but because you are externally oriented, you feel like it is better that the control would have been outside your domain. So, these factors make you stressful in the organization. Second is next is the self-esteem part, where you feel like the degree of confidence in one's abilities and the way one feel about oneself. So, it plays a pervasive role in moderating stress. So, your feeling of self-esteem may moderate the perception of the stressors and the consequences of your stress. So, some people have a type A behavior pattern, as we have already discussed it earlier. So, it's like a struggle to complete things very quickly. They are under always a time pressure, aggressiveness, ambitious in nature, competitiveness. So, all these they are very much preoccupied with deadlines. So, they are more prone to stress. So, as type B people are less prone to stress, as they work very steadily, they may require more time, they work hard, but they work at a very steadier pace. So, time is not a pressure for them, and they are less prone to stress as compared to the type A people. Social support is one of the important moderators. The comfort, assistance or information that an individual receives via the contacts with others, like peer group is a very important social support. So, and it provides a buffer to the individual from the negative effects of stressors. So, whether you have somebody in the organization to listen to whatever has happened to you and give you certain suggestions, that will help you to come out of the stress situation. When you are talking of stress prevention versus stress management, in stress prevention is its focus on controlling or eliminating the stressors which might lead to stress. And when you are talking of stress management, we are trying to control the stress which has already happened in the organization, and we are trying to manage some of those stresses and help people cope effectively with those stresses. So, some of the corrective programs include like training programs for managing and coping stress, redesigning the work, changes in the management style, more flexible working hours, so that if there is a role conflict, then people can answer to the different roles which are part of their life. So, better communication and team building and better feedback about the performance. What we have to do is to maximize the person environment fit. So, it focuses on two dimensions, like whether the work provides formal and informal rewards that meet or match the person's needs, and also whether the employee's skills, abilities and experiences match with the requirements and demands of the employer. So, it is both sides, on the employee's skills and his or her competencies and the demands placed by the individual organization, and whether the organization provides any recognition, formal and informal rewards based on the performance done by the individual, which shows which is a positive feedback about your performance level and your importance for the your importance in the organization. Strategies for maximizing person environment fit are recruitment and selection programs. So, we have to match the right people with requisite skills and competencies. So, link personal predisposition to specific aspect of the work environment, and then good socialization process which help the individuals to learn and internalize the values and expected behaviors in the organization to be an effective member, and also effective job design and ongoing redesign efforts, which takes care of the changing needs and how to answer to that needs through, and also well designed reward system in the organization, communication processes, a good leadership in place. All this will help to make the person environment fit a better fit. Organizational stress prevention and management programs could be like the employee assistance programs, which are designed to deal with the wide range of stress related problems both in work and non-work areas. So, tend to be based on medical approaches. Then employees you diagnose the problem, treat via counseling or supportive therapy. Then you screen periodically for detecting early problems in stress. So, anyone who sees some unusual behavior pattern should, like, the peer group should be very strong to detect the problems and report it to the appropriate authority, or take care first care should be taken by the peers, so that, because the people can communicate well, share their minds, they can go through that peer counseling to deal with the problems of stress. Then we can go for prevention via education and persuasion. So, it can be a company run program, or it can lead to given to external efforts. So, it's generally staffed by psychologists, a physician and counselors. So, it focuses on individual intervention, it gives biofeedback training, counseling, and the success of these programs actually depends on the employees' trust on the program, trust on, like, the help provided to them, the confidentiality with which the program. So, this is one of the very ethical issues, like to be confidential about the problems shared, and it should not carry any negative job implication. And also the wellness programs which focus on the physical and mental health of the individuals. Individual approaches could be cognitive techniques, relaxation, meditation and biofeedback. So, which goes for, like, teaching people to change the underlying expectations, beliefs, or deal with the arousal levels, or medication, and giving a feedback about when certain situation is stressful, and you recognize how to monitor and control changes in your bodily temperature, heart rate, etc., and try to cool down and change your perception of certain things, so that so all these will work together to, like, how a person can deal with stress at the individual level. So, we will stop over here and we will move on. Like, when you know, like, what is stress, what are the factors of stress, and what an organization needs to do, what we have discussed over here is counseling as a very important role to play in management of this whole stress process. In our next discussion, we are going to take up counseling and the different processes of counseling. As we have known, like, confidentiality is one of the major issues that needs to be maintained when we are talking of stress management techniques, and the trust developed in the employees. So, we will deal with all these issues when you are talking of the ethical issues in counseling in our next lecture. Thank you.